everybody. Welcome. Kamusta? Namaste. Konnichiwa. Ni hao. Welcome to the Smartsheet Asia Virtual User Group. We are so excited to have you here today. Welcome, welcome. Great. Fantastic. So for those that don't know who I am, my name is Jay Mundaris. I am coming to you live here from Sydney, Australia, but I want to welcome everybody that is joining us from across Asia today. We are excited to have you here. We have a fantastic lineup for you at this virtual user group with our guest speakers, Chris Matsumoto, CEO at HR Spectacles. We also have Vib, who is our solutions engineer at Smartsheet, and then also AJ, who will be later joining us for the customer Q&A. Now, this is a user group after all, so if you have any questions for the team, myself, Vib, AJ, and also Aaron, who's joining us, will be available to answer any of your questions. Now, for those that are still logging in, we'll just recap the agenda today. So I just, again, wanted to welcome everybody. Following this, we will have Chris join us and share his Smartsheet journey and also how they use Smartsheet at HR Spectacles. And if any of the practice runs are to go by, I think you guys will all leave really inspired and amazed by what they've done. Following the use case from Chris, we'll have the opportunity, or you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Then after Q&A, we'll have Vib show a product spotlight. We'll open the floor up once again for Q&A, and then we'll do some closing remarks and close off the user group. Now, just before and while we wait for people to still log in, would love to hear where you're coming from today. So if you locate at the bottom of your Zoom menu bar, you've got the chat function. Let us know where you're drop a hi and a hello. Let us know where you're coming from today. Would love to see where everybody is at. So Sydney, oh, hi, Kate. Nice to see you. I met Kate a couple of weeks ago at the Sydney user group. We've got Auckland, Malaysia, Manila. Kamusta po? How are you? Nice to see you. And Japan. Amazing, amazing. I want to quickly introduce Chris, our guest speaker. I still am very inspired and impressed by Chris, and I think you guys will be blown away too. He's done such an amazing, job of this solution from when I first met him last year up until where he is now with the team. I think it's really great. So I'm not going to steal any more of his thunder, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Chris. Welcome.
All right. Can everybody see my screen? Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well today. I'm super ecstatic to be here, and I hope everyone is having a fantastic week so far. It's a Wednesday, middle of the week, hang in there. Thank you for spending some time with me today to discuss how we use Smartsheet to automate our onboarding process. We would also like to thank the Smartsheet team for providing HR Spectacles a platform to share our best practices with you all today. We are truly excited to showcase different ways in which Smartsheet enables efficiency, growth, and scalability within our organization. Now, before I begin, I would like to get a general sense of the audience's Smartsheet skill level. From what I've gathered, we have in attendance today a large group of executives and managerial roles, mostly focused in the HR space. So in this room, we'll probably have a mix of people who know a lot about Smartsheet functions and some people who are just starting out with the basics. So on a scale of 0 to 5, with 5 representing excellent proficiency, could I invite some or all of you to rate your Smartsheet skill by simply typing on the comment box below? So as I tackle my presentation, there may be certain parts that will be broader in nature, as well as other parts that are more technical. Since we only have your valuable attention for a limited time today, if there's anything technical in nature that is unclear, I would be more than happy to discuss this with you at the end of the presentation. All right, so I'm seeing some responses over here. A lot of 3s, some 1s, some 4s. Okay, so I don't consider myself a 5. So I think we can get along throughout the presentation. But again, if you have any questions at the end, please reach out. So to recap, my name is Chris Matsumoto, and I am the founder and CEO of HR Spectacles. We are a full-service HR consultancy firm in the Philippines that acts as a one-stop shop for all of your HR needs. So this includes end-to-end employee lifecycle management, payroll solutions with our own timekeeping app and HRMS, executive headhunting, and other bespoke HR services. Our vision is to elevate the value of HR in all organizations, primarily in the Philippines, where HR is still predominantly seen as an administrative function rather than a strategic one. We intend to realize this vision, first and foremost, by leading with empathy, and secondly, by leveraging technology to empower businesses to succeed. So with regards to our Smartsheet journey, we came to learn about Smartsheet around 5 years ago, starting out with simple sheets to help us stay on top of contract renewal dates or deadlines, using a couple of basic workflows. As we further explored its capabilities, we began using the sheets as a platform to manage our employee databases, both internally and across our client organizations. Now, I believe what convinced us initially to migrate most of the processes into Smartsheet was the file attachment and comment thread per row functions. We realized that this was a better way to organize heaps of HR files, documents, and data. And it was easy for us to migrate from the other apps that we've been using, from Dropbox to Google Drive and Google Sheets. Though it was a steep learning curve, we used free resources online to learn and understand even more functions, including forms with attachments saved on each sheet row, update requests, change cell value, and basically other ways to organize and view your data. Last year, we upgraded our plans and invested more time with the customer success team to learn deeper about Smartsheet's functionality, including reports and dashboards. We also used this time to kind of bounce around ideas with the team and map out the ideas that we had envisioned for our various processes that we couldn't quite work out ourselves. So to further this effort, late last year, we established an in-house team specifically designed to focus on Smartsheet development. So this has helped us become more agile in the way we serve our clients, as we are able to provide customized solutions, as well as automate any or most of the HR processes our client would like to have in place. So over here on the bottom right of your screen are several of the most common procedures that we've built on Smartsheet. Some of these processes are as simple as a single sheet, while some are a bit more complex, involving a sequence of steps. Evidently, the majority of the processes emphasized here are deeply focused on HR procedures. However, through exploring and challenging ourselves further, we've successfully integrated Smartsheet also into other aspects of our operations. Okay, so today, because of the limited time, we are only able to cover one use case, which we have specifically designed for onboarding. So we use this internally and across our clients. And on this slide, we want to take a look at the differences between traditional onboarding and onboarding by a Smartsheet. So if you take a look at this, so what are the major challenges of traditional methods of onboarding? Well, for one, it's time consuming. I think we can all agree, especially if we rely on physical documents, that this unnecessarily increases the number of steps to get from point A to point B. So in the Philippines, as much as I don't understand it myself, even though I've lived here for a majority of my life, we have a propensity to use unnecessary amounts of paper and go through a long list of procedural steps that can be better simplified using automated workflows. One of the hardest things about using paper forms or documents is that it is obviously difficult to stay on top of any changes or modifications over time to that data. This requires a sort of reliance on our teams to consistently update and encode information changes, as well as move files individually from, let's say, their email to a particular database. Now, with the way we've built this process on Smartsheet, we've experienced faster turnaround times by eliminating specific or redundant steps. We've experienced greater efficiency in terms of the time saved in each process, as well as increased clarity in the way different personnel view their data. So to address very quickly one sample of a traditional method of onboarding, we can take a look at this process. So this process might look familiar to us. You have naturally a manager or department head that would notify HR of a new hire. That HR would then be prompted to create the necessary documentation, including the employment contract. They would notify the employee that there's specific requirements that need to be submitted. We would then execute the contract. HR would collect the documents. And then the fun part, scanning these physical paper as electronic copies and uploading them on your cloud storage. Following that, you would also probably manually input the data that you just scanned or from the paper itself onto an existing database. And then you would schedule and conduct your orientation, and the employee is then ready to go. Naturally, if we use Smartsheet to map out these functions, we can see that we can immediately refine steps or cut out some steps altogether for a faster turnaround time. So starting with these green boxes, in terms of the more efficient processes, the endorsement to HR can be organized better using a form and a sheet rather than individual emails. That way, you can backtrack the history of endorsements rather than going back in time and identifying those individual emails in your inbox. For these 3 steps down here, these involve informing the employee about pre-employment requirements, as well as collecting these documents from them. So once again, we can utilize the form function for these steps. For example, in, let's say, an onboarding email from the HR to the employee, you could include a link there that would then direct the employee to a Smartsheet form. Then using the file upload section, the employee would upload their requirements, and then that would be saved automatically onto the row corresponding to that employee. If you take that step further, instead of that form just being a platform for submission of documents, we can also turn this form into a digital employee information sheet, requiring the employee to fill out all of the necessary employment information that you need from them. So in this way, we have neatly organized all of the needed employee data, requirements, and other documents all into one row. By cutting out the step of HR manually encoding the data, we have saved time, but we have also increased the accuracy of information being encoded directly by the employee. Lastly, since the employee will upload the scanned copies of their requirements using the employee information form, this eliminates the need to scan anything at all. So to take another view of the same concepts that we talked about, we can see that we use a variety of Smartsheet functions in each step. I have discussed the first 4 in the previous slide, and if we look further than that, we can see that our team also utilizes dashboards and reports for various reasons. Here we can see our new hire monitoring sheet. This is a view, let's say, of an HR team that is responsible to handle the onboarding process. The information that is in here would be encoded by that department head or manager that would be endorsing this new hire. So over here, we have a bunch of features, specific features that we use in Smartsheet. I'm not going to go into them for the sake of time, but I do want you guys to remember 2 things: attachments and reminders or automated workflows. So to get a better grasp at this end-to-end process of onboarding, I'm going to show a short video from the moment a department head endorses a new hire to the employee, to the HR team. So here you would fill up a simple form that you would create on Smartsheet, enter the necessary data points or values. And then when you click submit, you can attach any files as well. You can click submit. Your HR team will now be prompted that there's a new submission. So we can see over here that Bruce Banner's credentials has been inputted. And so that is now I guess a prompt for the HR to begin these processes. So over here, you can see that there's 4 columns with check marks on it. And these basically indicate action items for the HR to complete the onboarding process from the HR team's end. So we see here that the HR is uploading the signed job offer. And so naturally, they would probably click that as, or mark that as complete. Following that, that is connected to another trigger. It's connected to an automated email, an email that is sent automatically from Smartsheet to our HR team. So it basically just nudges them, okay, has been done. What is the next step already? So over here, it says, hi team, kindly prepare to send the HRMS credentials via email to Bruce Banner. So then naturally, I would try to compose an email, put my template, and then send that to the employee. If you want to automate that a little bit further and stick within Smartsheet, you could alternatively create an automated email from Smartsheet sending the employee their user credentials. So over here on this column, we can see here it says send HRMS credentials. When your HR clicks yes, it will then prompt an auto email to the employee with all of the details that they need for the HRMS. So again, you can see this custom message. It says, hey, Bruce, good day. We're glad to share with you the following user credentials. So I want to take this time to also say that none of this text is manually typed by the team. This is automatically generated through Smartsheet itself. So I love this because it saves time. It saves the manual labor of having to compose an email. You can see that there are specific information, maybe just pertaining to Bruce Banner. And these were referenced onto a sheet. So there's a way to reference a cell value to a customized message, and that will allow for a more seamless kind of onboarding. Part of this email as well, you can see that there's a link to a dashboard. So let's go ahead and play around with that link. Open this link in real time and showcase that. All right, so this is then what the employee would see. I guess it would be pertinent to include any important information about the company, maybe about its services, its products, mission, vision. You would also want to probably indicate an org chart, or maybe just a directory of all of the key personnel that this employee needs to contact. It would be beneficial as well to let them know about the roles so that they have a better rapport right away on their first few days. Another idea is to indicate the action items of the employee. So we can see here that there are 5 steps that the employee kind of needs to take. So first and foremost, I would have to fill up my employee profile. So these are clickable links on the dashboard, which can now be directed to anything else, right? So for this example, we've connected it to a third-party application called JotForm. So for those of you that don't know JotForm, it is basically an easy way to fill up PDFs. We don't always work with office-based employees. Some are blue-collared in nature, so they're not technologically advanced, so they don't readily have an e-signature available. So apps like this are flexible because it allows the employee to just basically draw their signature on the phone. You can also likewise just input a regular PDF that works as well. You can attach an image, you can attach a video, anything that you think you would need that would help the employee understand their role better and their place in the company better. Number 3 is an employee information sheet. So if you remember in the previous slides, I was talking about instead of the HR manually typing in the information, well, let's empower the employee to type in their own information. And that way, we know it's greater accuracy and it's faster speed of submission. And likewise, you can also include other stuff like your employee handbook. I don't know how everybody here displays their employee handbook, but this is the way that we're doing it now, just through attaching it or linking it through this dashboard. Lastly, so going back to the email, this is about the user credentials of the system. So naturally, you would want to put a guide as well, maybe an instructional video or a manual such as this on how to use, how to time in, how to time out. You could add a link to the portal itself, and you can have download instructions as well. Over here, you can also put frequently asked questions, anything that could help the employee understand their role better. So again, this is just one way of creating an onboarding dashboard, which I think is a modern way and a very clean way to kind of give the employee all of the resources that they need to be able to start their job and their journey in your company. All right. to take that step further. So what happens now after the employee finishes those action items? So maybe now I'm going to show you a employee information sheet. So this would be the view again of the HR. So this is now fully hired employees, fully onboarded employees. They're in their fifth month and their second year. You can manage their data by compiling all of the data points that are needed. You zoom in. So various data points depending on what your organization needs. And then you can see these columns over here. So there's green columns. They denote basically action items in relation to onboarding. So you can see a checklist of items here: employee profile, employment contract. So technically, you would want the number of check marks to at least coincide with the number of attachments. That way, you know that you're staying on top of all of the items that you need to secure. For these pink columns, these are related more for offboarding. So you can indicate the reason for leaving, separation date. You can indicate if they've been cleared of the specific forms that you've been asking them to do, and also details about their final pay. So again, this is one way to manage your employee data. Imagine if you have 100 employees or 200 employees, it will then be a lot easier to manage your data rather than, say, for example, an extensive Google Sheet. All right, we're nearing the end of this use case. With regards to, on this slide, we wanted to show a simple use case on how we can create and use reports for our management team to better understand the progress of their teammates and to also identify gaps for improvement, right? So over here, a report is, it has many uses. Imagine if you have a sheet that has 30 columns, but maybe you just want a digestible view of that information. So a report would come in handy there because then you would filter the columns that you would just want to see. You can see over here as well that I've grouped them per team member that I have, right? So for the purposes of this example, I've only highlighted 2, but imagine if you have 12 recruiters, if you had 12 HR personnel, how do you know which one of them is doing better than the other? Over here, we have 2 other summaries. So we can see the number of employees that have been processed or the number of employees that have been sent a job offer. And also an average length of time for when how long it takes us to send a job offer from the moment a manager endorses it to us. So we can see over here that as a team, just from this quick statistic, it takes us a little over a day to send a job offer. So it depends on how strict we are or what our quality of standard or service is. But for me, something closer to 0 would be better. So because then that would denote an immediate response after a department head would endorse this hire. What else? If we break that down further, then we can see between the team members who's more efficient. So for example, over here, Celine, it takes her 1.6 days to send a job offer, whereas Carrie takes less than a day to send a job offer. So these important insights are important for managers because then just at a quick glance, you know who to kind of nudge, you know who to have a quick talk with to kind of like align them in the right direction to make sure that your service is consistent all throughout. All right, so this is my last slide. Before we end our session today, I wanted to highlight a key accomplishment that we have achieved during the pandemic because of our ability to use Smartsheet in our operations. So since the outbreak, we were able to shift to a fully remote organization in just 7 days. We were able to do this since we had already been using digital collaborative tools such as Smartsheet and cloud storage technologies even prior to the pandemic. So at that time, we were blessed to handle less than 500 employees across our clients' workforce. This in turn has enabled our clients to continue their business operations and as well to continue to provide a livelihood to their employees. So we are proud to say that we were recognized as the national winner of the 2021 Productivity Olympics conducted by the Department of Labor of Employment in the Philippines. This is for our achievement in business continuity and leveraging technology during this time. So we look forward to enriching our capabilities with the way we utilize Smartsheet and continue to question the way we do things in search for greater efficiency and impact in our organization. Thank you all so much for your attention today and listening to our story. We at HR Spectacles appreciate your time and wish you all an amazing week ahead.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chris. And thanks, everybody. I see everybody's giving a bit of love to Chris. So if you really enjoyed that use case, yeah, send him some love. Drop in a heart or give him a hand clap in the chat, but really appreciate it. Now we're going to be moving to the next segment. We are going to open it up for a bit of Q&A. So I'm going to invite my colleague AJ onto the stage. Hi, AJ, you there?
Yeah, hi, Jay. How are you?
Amazing. Good, good. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Chris, thank you so much. Like, the only words I have is I'm so proud the way we have built this whole workflows. I do remember I'll go back 7 months and a lot of meetings we had on building this. It's only proud. Like you have done amazing and phenomenal job. And I'm sure our attendees have the same feeling on this HR use case. So amazing. Look, we've got a couple of questions, but my first question, and I think a lot of our panelists would be interested in hearing as well. If we go back 7 to 8 months when we first started with Smartsheet, what were your procurement policies in order to find a software like Smartsheet? Like, what were your top 3 criteria that, okay, a software should have these?
All right, thank you for that question. So I'd like to begin first with, I guess, explaining how we came to learn about Smartsheet. So, technically I was just on the web, like looking for new software and tools to use in our operations. So as I got to learn about Smartsheet, I read up on articles and watched a few videos. And then it was only when a client of mine actually showcased Smartsheet in a meeting that I was like, oh, okay, so people are actually using Smartsheet. Okay, let me try my hand at this. Looked into it a little bit further, and we realized that a lot of the functions we've been using a lot of Google Sheets to manage our employee data back then, and so the bright thing that just kind of stood out from Smartsheet is the feature of attaching documents along with the data itself in one row, and to us that was a game changer, more than a criteria about looking for a particular software. This was the criteria. This was the game changer for us to kind of say, hey, all right, we're going to migrate all of our processes to Smartsheet because it's a lot more fluid, it's a lot more flexible, and there's many features at your disposal for many different use cases as well. So super happy to have found Smartsheet a few years ago.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And look, we've got another couple of questions, but the other questions a lot of our customers, they ask is about internal change management. How did you approach change management internally, given it's going to be a completely new piece of software for you and your team? How did you approach that internally?
Okay, that's a great question. So I guess continuing with what I've said also with our journey on discovering Smartsheet, we actually took a slow pace in really learning and fully maximizing the features of Smartsheet. So I would say we took about 3 years, just myself and one other person, just going back and forth and meeting just one-on-ones on how to kind of improve our internal processes. I think for the first 3 years, we were stagnant in the sense that, we just used sheets, we just used a form. We didn't really, we tried to learn as much as we can, but there's also a gap, a wall that you'll hit where it's like, okay, this is too technical in nature. And so during that time, I think that's the time that we reached out to the customer success team. So with you, AJ included, and as well as Annie, thank you both so much for guiding us in these sessions. For everyone, these customer success meetings are, we went through a series of meetings and just kind of dug in and kind of learned the things that AJ and Annie had to share, right? And so in these sessions, this is what kind of opened the door for our Smartsheet development team. And so if we're talking about change management from all of the perspectives that we've learned from you, just having you studying a sheet, studying a report, studying a dashboard, your interpretations is different from our interpretations. And so when we merged those two interpretations together, that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to build an actual Smartsheet team inside our company. This Smartsheet team is primarily responsible for two things. One is to cascade the information to our entire workforce. So for example, we have something called a tech huddle, where it's like a 1-hour session, and we would just kind of give bite-sized nuggets of knowledge about features on how to use Smartsheet. FYI, this is how you do things. This is how you do this. This is how you embed. This is how you do a conditional formatting. So slowly throughout those months, with that continuous education, that's how we've cascaded the knowledge to my entire team. I've always encouraged my team to learn technology fast. So I think we are capable of doing it. Our team has an average age of about 26 or 27. So still young, still very energetic to learn new technologies. And I think that's super important in any innovation that needs to happen. So the other component of this team is that they build processes for our other departments. So like I mentioned in the previous slide, most of the processes that we built on Smartsheet are HR related because that is our core business. However, this Smartsheet team has also been able to build workflows and processes for our finance department, for our marketing department, for our sales department. So slowly, as we're continuing to work with you, we're uncovering new functionalities of Smartsheet, which we're super excited about.
Amazing. And that's very good that you mentioned that, it's not only for HR, but you also sort of using Smartsheet within your finance, marketing, and all the other use cases. So that's what it goes to say, that Smartsheet is not just one use case. You can use Smartsheet the way you like. You can sort of mold Smartsheet the way you like in any functionality. I've seen one question in Q&A, and I think that'll be an interesting one. So how is Smartsheet complementing your current HRMS system, Chris?
Well, it's complementing our current HR operations because it allows us to have two great things. One is to have a competitive advantage towards any competitor that we would go against. I think for one, a Smartsheet isn't too known here in the Philippines, which is why we want to kind of raise awareness. We want to learn how to do Smartsheet, and we want to impact other organizations and make their workflows a lot more efficient. Secondly, it allows our organization to scale up a lot faster than if we don't have it, right? So the great thing about Smartsheet is with our processes. So obviously in HR, you have your employee life cycle, the basic processes such as onboarding, disciplinary action, performance evaluations, offboarding. So what Smartsheet has enabled us to do is we were able to create a framework for these processes. And moving forward, we are able to replicate that and further customize it according to our clients' needs. So that flexibility is also a great benefit in incorporating Smartsheet into our operation.
Nice. Amazing. Jay, do we have any more time for a couple of more questions? Are we just on time?
We're just on time, actually. So
Cool.
the Q&A is blowing up. So thank you so much, everybody, for your questions. What we'll do, Chris is going to stick around. So that'll be great. That's awesome. So we will try to answer some of your questions in the back end. We do have a little bit more of opportunity for open Q&A later in the session. So we'll try to tackle some of those then. But in the meantime, and in the interest of time, I'm going to hand it over now to my colleague Viv, who will do a product spotlight. But don't let the questions stop. Keep them coming through. We'll try our best to answer them live, and we'll get to it as well, hopefully later on after Viv. Viv, over to you.
Thanks, Jay. And great session, Chris. I'm super pumped. I think it was an incredible story, and the amount of what I really liked about all the different use cases was that you've leveraged all the functionalities really well, which is, eventually our goal, to ensure that you're maximizing the value that you're getting from Smartsheet. Now let me, Jay, if that's okay, let me just take over screen share and let me know if you can see my screen. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for today's user group, which was very much centered to all the amazing use cases that you can drive around the HR teams. My name is Viv, for anyone who I haven't met, and I'm a solutions engineer at Smartsheet. So today I thought it would be good to take you through one of our most popular premium apps that can really complement these HR use cases. The first point that Chris made was the biggest benefit of using Smartsheet was storing all these attachments and documents, and they're extremely sensitive information. So today we're going to go through dynamic view and how it can really enhance that solution even further and give you additional guardrails and layer of security. So what is dynamic view? Dynamic view in a nutshell is one of our premium applications that allows you to create filtered views on top of your data capture in Sheets. It has primarily three values, which is the first one and the most important one being security. So when you build a dynamic view on top of your Sheets, you don't have to share access to the underlying data with anyone, and they can just access the right information that's relevant for them. So it allows you to collaborate cross teams. So Chris, I think you had a couple of examples where we had different trackers for different teams. So with the help of dynamic view, we can bring all those processes together in one place, while those teams can just work on the stuff that's relevant for them. And you don't have to worry about people having access to sensitive information, such as their compensation or banking information and things like that. The second value that it adds is it simplifies the whole user experience by creating those curated views. Now, Smartsheet also has a capability called reports that's a part of our core platform that allows you to create filtered views as well. But the output is still in that core spreadsheet or one of those traditional Smartsheet views format. We'll see shortly how dynamic view looks like as well, but it's completely changes that view and makes it more portal-like and makes it a lot easier for the end users to interact with that information. And as a result of that, driving multi-step processes become a lot easier. So for example, before we hand out an offer letter to a candidate, we need approval from payroll. So dynamic view can allow you to build that process cleanly so that the HR team knows exactly when they get that approval, and they're not able to create the offer letter or complete that process until they are allowed to do so. So it allows you to build those guardrails around your process and ensures that step-by-step process runs smoothly across the board. So here's a screenshot of what dynamic view looks like. I'm going to show you that live as well, but I thought it'd be a good idea to just give you a little bit more information around how it all works, because we don't have enough time to go into the settings and the backend. But there are a few things that I would like to call out. The first one being the ability to filter data in different ways. So you could filter data based on the person who's viewing the dynamic view, so tied to their user profile. You could filter it based on sheet level filters as well, so they can be applied in dynamic view. But the biggest change that you'll notice is the whole look and feel. So we are not looking at a grid anymore. When we click on a particular line item, we get a separate panel that pops up from the right, which gives us more information. So it just makes this whole view a lot nicer, a lot cleaner, a lot more streamlined. But in addition to that, as an administrator of this process, you get more control over what fields can the end user edit versus what they can just view. So if you're working in a grid-based user interface, it's not easy to read what is something that an end user needs to action versus what is there just for their knowledge. But this makes it very obvious. What are the things that are grayed out? What are the things that, that end user can edit? The core functionality of or collaboration functionality of attachments and comments, they exist in dynamic view as well. So we're not losing any of that core values that Smartsheet brings. Now, let's look at an example in action. So what I've done here is I've used Chris's example as an inspiration. It doesn't look as nice as Chris's example. I'm not the most creative person, but structurally it is quite similar in the sense that every time a new employee gets hired, this row represents all the tasks that need to be completed to ensure that the new starter can join smoothly. So whenever we have a new person joining in, there are a lot of processes that happen behind the scenes, some of which are taken care of by the IT team, setting up their machine, setting up their account, making sure they have access to the right software. HR team also has, a lot of processes like that they have to do in the back end. And so does the finance team. So these different colors represent the tasks that need to be completed by the different teams. But in these rows, obviously this is dummy data, but you would have information like health information, their addresses, their bank information, banking details, etc. Right? And this is just an example. A real world scenario could have a lot of tasks like that. It could be 30, 40, 50 tasks. And that's a lot of information to manage in the core platform. So while we can still, in theory, work on the sheet, but then apart from displaying those sensitive pieces of information to everyone, we also create a risk of so many people going in there and updating data, which is, which could just make them accidentally change something that they're not supposed to and things like that. So it could create a lot of confusion. So how do we solve that? Is by building a dynamic view on top. So this is a dynamic view that I've built on top of that sheet that I just showed you. It is filtered by all the tasks that are assigned to me, right? So not all, we've got a big IT team, right? There might be a few people, but I don't need to see tasks that need to be completed by other people in my team. I just want to see what's relevant to me. I don't want to see tasks that need to be completed by other departments, right? So just makes this whole process of updating a lot cleaner, a lot more streamlined. Now, when I land on this view, I know exactly what are my pending tasks. I can then click on a particular row, and I can now go in there and update, the tasks as I finish them. Another thing to point out here is that the status is grayed out because as a process owner, I don't want my team members to go in there and update the status. I want the status to be updated automatically. So the way I've designed it is that if I uncheck, we definitely don't need that right now. So if I uncheck all these, activities, the status automatically goes back to not started. And if I go in there and mark all the tasks as completed, not only the task status updates, that entry gets removed, from the list altogether. So this is my working action list in a way. I can still go in there, upload attachments or access attachments that may have been collecting during the hiring process. I can go in there and add a comment that, hey, Chris, this one's all set, or, there might be an issue or whatever. So I can add all that commentary here and it gets tracked in your underlying sheets. Now, this is great. It allows you to build that, additional security layer and everything. But I think if you were to really elevate this experience further and utilize all the different values that Smartsheet brings to the table, I would highly recommend combining the power of dynamic view with dashboards. So what you're seeing here is more of an operational manager dashboard. So I'm the IT team manager. And I need to know how what my team's workload is, who's working on tickets. Obviously, I'm the most hardworking person on my team, right? So I've got the most tickets, but I can also check, how many open action items do we have by the different locations, by different departments, etc. But I can also access that dynamic view from here as well. And these are all the tickets that need to be assigned. So I can just go in there and let's say I assign this to Aaron. Well, we've got a few Aarons there. So I'll just pick the second option and save it. And as soon as I do that, again, it's working as a live action item list and it gets removed. So as a manager, my goal is to keep this assignment task list as clean as possible and down to 0. But then I'm not having to go into different areas to make this happen. I can do it all from the one place. Similarly, thinking about it from a new starter standpoint, Chris shared a really good example of a resource dashboard that they built to make sure that all the new starters have all the right information available to them, all the action items that they need to complete. Now, a lot of times they may need some additional support, right? So another way to leverage dynamic view into this onboarding use case is by adding a support section to that portal where you could have a form to go in and submit additional details. And I can say, all right, update my bank details. And this is a medium priority task and it sits with the accounting team. So I can go in there and add those requests from my onboarding dashboard and also access my previous requests from the same screen. So if finance needs more information from me, we can coordinate all that from here and it streamlines the whole process. So that's it from me in terms of the demonstration today. I know we're short on time, so I'm just going to go back and wrap this up. I think it's really important to highlight some of the key use cases that you can think of. Obviously, this is a HR-centric user group today, so I wanted to make sure that I specifically call those out. So from an HR perspective, I think performance reviews is another area where dynamic view can help with, where maybe you have a list of all your employees and their performance reviews and commentary, but you want managers to just have access to their team and employees to have access to just their data. So that's another good use case. We've already looked at a couple around hiring and onboarding, as well as request management. As a HR team, we would get a lot of requests from the wider organization. So dynamic view could be a good way to build a formal process around that. But also remember that when you do get access to a certain feature like this, it's not restricted to just yourselves. It's always good to think about other ways to utilize dynamic view. So if you don't have a formal IT ticketing system, this could be a good lightweight solution for that. And the more use cases that you can solve for, the more value that you get from this feature and, really increasing that return on investment. So to wrap things up, some of the key callouts, if you were to take away, something out of this session today, take away these 5 or 6 pointers. So what is dynamic view? It allows you to share right information with the right people at the right time for viewing and editing. So you get that control. We don't need to share underlying data. And so it keeps that whole process more secured. It does have that form life experience in a way, right? That side panel popping up from the right, you're not really interacting with a grid-based layout. It's more of a portal-like experience. You could embed dynamic view in dashboards to, again, elevate that experience and make sure you have a one-stop shop for all the pieces of information and activities that you have to do. You have the ability to make certain fields read-only and more dynamic. And finally, apart from all the different sharing options that you get in Smartsheet, Dynamic View has an additional sharing options where you can share the entire dynamic view that you build to the entire company or to the entire domain. So we understand that application of something like this would be wider, right? So we don't want you to manage your sharing list individually. You could just share it to the whole domain and not have to worry about them having access to data because you're not shared underlying sheets. So they'll just not see anything if it's not relevant for them. And that's my time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Perfect. Now, for those that are new to Smartsheet or just a bit of a refresher, we have a lot of resources available for all of our users. So I'm just going to flash this here on the screen, and we'll share this to you in an email as well. A really great way to find information about Smartsheet. We've got the Learning Center, the Solution Center, Smartsheet University. My favorite at the moment is Smartsheet Community. I really encourage everybody, if you're not part of Smartsheet Community, to join and sign up. It's a really great forum. If you've got a question, like myself, I always pop something in there, and people will, Smartsheet users from around the world, happy to help and share their input and how they, tips, best practices, things like that. You can also get support. So smartsheet.com/get help is another great way to get in touch as well. Again, if you're brand new to Smartsheet, we have a quarterly meetup. Our next one is coming up in early August. So please keep an eye out on our website, or if you would like an invitation, just reach out to our customer success team. Our upcoming user groups, we've got a virtual user group for Japan at the end of August. And if by any chance, any of you all traveling from Asia Pacific and you're in Melbourne in end of August, please come and say hi. Would love to see you in person. I thought I'd just pop it there in case anybody was traveling to Australia at that time. And then our next Asia user group meetup is again in early August of the 10th. Please save that date. If you're interested in presenting like Chris, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. It doesn't need to be HR. It could be any use case that you're using Smartsheet for. I love hearing these stories. I probably have like the best story because best job here because all I do is really hear customer stories and listen to them all day, which is fantastic. So if you would like to or are keen to present, please reach out to usergroups@smartsheet.com. And last but not least, as we mentioned before, if you are looking to get help or improve your usage of Smartsheet, please reach out to us, the customer success team right there. And that's all for today, folks. Thank you so much once again for joining us. We really appreciate it. And as I wrap up, Chris, once again, thank you so much for joining and sharing your Smartsheet journey. We loved having you here.
Thank you as well, Jay, and to the rest of the Smartsheet team. I really appreciate this opportunity to share our story. Looking forward for future collaborations. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much.
Move with the rhythm, shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. You've been working, but you're flirting.